It's been a week. It's been a busy week. Not that I've actually done so much, but just because I've had so much on my mind. And I just want to talk to you about it. I don't want to spend too much time today. I don't really have a whole lot to go over. But, before we get into it all, if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you've never seen my face, never seen one of my videos, my name is McKenna. I own a digital media company called Studio SB Creatives. And today I am just making a follow-up video to the video I made last week because I was covering some really important topics. The main one being that, I am wanting to take the next step with my business. I am wanting to take bigger strides, take bigger risks. And last week, I was presented with the opportunity to take a risk. And unfortunately, I backed out at the last minute. And I just want to talk about kind of what happened because I was I was talking about trying to get into a studio space and build this new photography, videography studio that I have had as a business idea in the back of my mind for a couple years now. And, I've been spending the last 2 weeks at this point-ish doing a little bit of research, trying to finalize some ideas and just kind of get a feel for what it might look like for me to, be in the position of a studio owner, I guess. And I was supposed to actually tour the space late last week, and I was hoping, that would give me enough time to do a little bit more research, talk to a few more people, and just, get a little bit more comfortable with the idea. And that's just not what happened. I ended up getting a phone call bright and early Monday morning from the broker/agent. And he's like, hey, I have somebody else who wants to put a letter of intent on the building, and I want you to see it before they have an opportunity to do that. Can you look at it today? And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me, bro. I was so ready to be doing this. But I said, yeah. And I went and looked at it, and the space was great. It was great space. It was a little bit bigger than I had anticipated, but it wasn't that much of an issue. And, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think, work out if this is going to work while I'm on site and try and not let this dude know what's going on. Because I don't know if this letter of intent was real. I don't know if it was just a tactic to try and get me to move a little bit faster, create urgency, if you will, or if it was 100% authentic and he really did have somebody who wanted to move forward on it. So I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out, do I want this building bad enough? Am I willing to, put in the work to try and get it to where it needs to be? Am I going to be able to make it work financially if if the business doesn't generate a single dollar? And the initial rent that I saw was like at the line for how much I wanted to spend. And I thought when I talked to him the first time before actually going to look at it, that was the final price. I thought that all the utilities and everything was included in that, which had it been, I probably would have been like, screw it, sure, let me sign the papers, let's get this thing figured out. But as I was on site and I happened to mention it to him, he did inform me that there were some costs that were not included in that final rent price. And it was about $1,000 in extra fees and utility bill type things. And that is pretty much what made me back out entirely. And to tell you the truth, I feel bad about it. I really, really liked that space. I really, really liked, the location. I liked everything about it. And I feel really, really bad that I had to back out at the last minute. But if there's anything I've learned from, people who are more successful than me and from, all the books that I've read, when taking those risks, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be unsure, uncertain. And I don't think that backing out is the worst thing you can do if you intend to follow through at a later time. I think the only reason that I really backed out is because I just didn't have enough information that made me confident in moving forward with a decision that would have resulted in me getting the keys to the building. You know, I still wanted to talk to other studio owners. I still wanted to run some numbers on, you know, startup cost estimations. I still had to get together like a floor plan for how I was going to fill up the space and get a timeline for getting that done. Like, there was just so much up in the air that I wasn't ready to make, you know, schedule a showing a Thursday and then be forced to make a decision that following Monday when I was supposed to have, you know, at least a few extra days to figure things out. And then on top of that, you know, it's been tax season, so I'm trying to get together all my financials from last year and, you know, renew all the things for my car and get my car looked at because it's been acting up a little bit. And I've just had a trillion different things on my mind, and adding a new expense to my ever-growing list of expenses, especially at a time where I'm living in my negative profit margin, just did not seem ideal, especially not at a price that I didn't feel comfortable with paying. Had it been $1,000 cheaper, I might have sucked it up and figured out, you know, how to get a little extra money, or at least eaten some of the costs for a while until the business hopefully started performing the way that I would have wanted it to. But there was just too much going on, too much happening all at once where I couldn't fully commit. And, you know, when it comes to those big life decisions, you might find yourself in a similar mindset to me, where it's like you're not fully ready and you don't know if you can make things work out. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that when it comes to those big life decisions and those big steps and, you know, whatever you want to call it, however you want to think about it, every person I've met who's ever been face to face with one of those has never fully been ready. You know, I don't think that there is a right moment. I don't think that there is a moment in time where you feel 100% prepared, because there's always going to be, you know, a level of uncertainty, a level of the unknown, because you're doing something new, you're doing something you've never tried, and there's always going to be that feeling of what if, you know, what if it doesn't work out? What if it doesn't do what I want it to do? What if? And your mind is like super susceptible to doubt in those moments. But if you fully believe in yourself and you fully believe in your ability to make something work, even if that means taking a small loss in the beginning, you know, there's not a doubt in my mind that you will eventually find the courage and find your footing to make those decisions end up working for you and, you know, working the way that you intend them to in the long run. So, you know, when you're faced with one of those decisions, if you're ever faced with one of those decisions, you know, if you're not fully ready to commit, my advice is don't. But don't be so scared that you never attempt it. And also be aware that there's never going to be a moment where you're 100% ready to take those leaps, because that's just how it is, man, getting into something new. But, you know, I've been thinking about it more, and I've still been looking into spaces, and, you know, I actually ended up talking to one of the studio owners in downtown who runs a studio very similar to what I'm trying to start. And, you know, he got me at the worst moment, because I sent his business an email and was hoping to get an email reply, but he actually ended up calling me on the phone while I was waiting for another meeting with my bank. So that conversation did not go exactly as planned or as how I even wanted it to in the slightest. But he was a cool guy. He actually ended up inviting me to a workshop that his studio does. So I'm going to try and hit that up this week. I'll let you know how that goes. Hopefully we find the time to have a more in-depth and better conversation compared to the one that we did have, because I feel like he was hoping that he would get more from me question-wise, and I just wasn't there because my mind was on another meeting that I was 10 minutes late to, because he decided to call me when he did. But that's just life, man. Not everything happens at the most opportune moment, but you know, you just got to keep moving. Not everything's going to be perfect all the time, every time, but you just got to learn how to pivot, learn how to adjust, learn how to make the most out of whatever situation you're in. So I'm not exactly sure what the future looks like from here on out. I still hope that within the next, you know, couple weeks, couple months, maybe by the end of the year, that I am actually in a studio space, and I am, focused and working on doing that. And hopefully I can enter that next chapter of my life with you guys. As far as where 2026 seems to be going, I have a big announcement coming. I'm not sure if I'm going to tell you guys what it is later this month or early next. Early next at the absolute latest. Just depends on how things are going. But as far as right now, I don't know what else I have to talk about, so I'm pretty much going to wrap it up there. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you want to talk about whatever big dreams, big goals, big things you want to do by the end of the year are, go ahead and leave me a comment. And like always, if you want to see more content like this, you want to see what crazy adventures I get up to in the future, because there's going to be some crazy adventures this year, or if you just want to see more of my face, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I will see you on the next one.